Hi everyone, my name is Dipali Kulshrestha. Once again, on behalf of AWS User Group Delhi NCR, I welcome you to this next session in AWS Quick Start series. In this session, we will focus on various storage options available in AWS. This session will be conducted by myself and Rajat. So as you know that we are we are AWS user group leaders and striving towards spreading AWS knowledge to the community members and using this platform for mutual learning and growth opportunities. Rajat, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Dipali. Hi, everyone. Very good morning and welcome to the session today. So, myself, Rajat Arora, I am working as a Vice President Cloud Technologies, especially in NetWest India Group. And we are doing these sessions to spread across the knowledge on the AWS. And these sessions are being planned for the people who are very new to AWS or people who already know AWS and they want to enhance their knowledge. So, let's talk about the session. Let's jump on to the session for today. So, three major pillars of cloud computing we discussed in the previous session, like the basics about cloud computing and some bit of the compute services. And if we learn about the three major pillars of a cloud computing is compute, which provides a wide variety and range of secure, resizable compute capacity, which is majorly CPU power and the RAM, which is the brain of any computing power. And then the next category is network, which provides a wide range of secure connectivity between resources, which is within the same region or across the same region. That is the major add-on, and people can even use the public cloud masters like AWS to define their own virtual private cloud for the secure application. And the third pillar is storage. So storage is, as we discussed, there are multiple type of storage, which is a remote storage, a native storage, a basic C drive that we use to keep our data. So there are different type of storage, and today the session is majorly focusing on discussing the various storage options that are available with the AWS public cloud.
Okay, so I'm just going on to the AWS console and just want to showcase that if we go to storage section here, so here we will notice that we have multiple services available, but each service has its specific purpose. So that is something we are going to discuss today. So we are clear that in what use case, what service to be used. Sorry,
Yes,
Rajat.
as Dipali
Over to
has
you
just
again.
shown, yeah, as Dipali has just shown, there are so many storage services available under AWS portfolio. So how a user will decide like which storage service to be used in which part of our application. So that is where we will try to explain the features and the benefits of different storage, which will help you to pick up the right storage services for your application component. So the very first basic service is Amazon Elastic Block Store, which is known as EBS. So EBS is the basic storage which is provided by Amazon, which is attached to the operating system instances, which we known as EC2 instances. So all EC2 instances are backed up by the EBS volumes. So there are other options as well. We'll discuss as soon as we proceed further, like how we do the persistent storage, how we can go with the non-persistent storage for the EC2. So we'll discuss that in the coming slides. Then we have a elastic file system. So there are requirement like you want to have a shared storage between multiple systems that can be used to keep data, something like PDF files or dump reports, so which can be attached to multiple EC2 instances at the same time, and you can use it as a remote storage service. So that is where EFS comes into the picture, and people can use EFS in their architecture and design the shared architectures as well for sharing applications. And the third one is simple storage service. It is the most popular service, which is also known as Amazon S3. This is an object based storage. This provides a huge data pool and the very cost effective way to store things on AWS cloud. So there are lots of options like where you can optimize on the cost, optimize on the performance of the storage, and you can also enable and disable encryption of the data that you put onto the storage. So we'll also discuss that in the coming slides in more detail. Then we have a Glacier storage. So in case you need to use the archival storage area and you want to reduce your cost, so Amazon Glacier is the best part to use that. Then we also have a AWS storage gateways. So this is majorly when you want to transport a huge amount of data from your on-premise organization to the AWS cloud, then you can use the Amazon storage gateway, which will provide you a platform using which you can transport a huge amount of data in a secure way from your on-premise to the Amazon public cloud. And the last one is a AWS Snowball, which is again a very high scalable data service where you can have petabytes of data and you can scale data transport for the huge data requirements. So here in the below diagram, you can also see a kind of a snapshot which gives you a kind of a logos and the different icons which are used in Amazon. So whenever you use Amazon console, you will notice these icons which are there for each service.
Yeah, just to add on storage gateway and Snowball. So, storage gateway is used in the scenarios when you are working on a hybrid model. Means you have your application running on premise as well as on AWS, and you need some common storage between the two. So, in that case, AWS storage gateway is used. It is a hybrid storage for on premise and cloud. But when we talk about Snowball, so it is especially for migration sort of scenarios. When you want to one time migrate your on-premise data to the cloud, but you have a like huge history available on-premise and you don't want to transfer that data over the internet. So Snowball is a like huge device. It is a hardware where you will copy your on-premise data into that hardware, you ship it to AWS, and then AWS copy that data into your AWS account. So this is storage gateway is for hybrid use cases, while Snowball is for your migration purposes when you need to transport petabyte scale of data. Yes, Rajat, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, let's move to the next slide. So let's start with the EBS. So Elastic Block Storage is the basic storage that comes up with the Amazon EC2 instances. So you can also consider it as a basic file storage that we have on any laptop or any desktop computer. So this is a block-based storage which has a sequence of blocks attached to each other and that you can use to copy your data. So you just need to format the block as per the operating system requirement. Like you need to use FAT or NTFS for Windows systems and inodes for the Linux system. So in the based on that, you can start using the volume and you can start keeping the data. So Amazon provides a different ways to procure EBS storage. So also another part is like you will not be charged for the whole storage that you block for. Something like if you procure a volume of 100 GB, but you're storing only data for 20 GB, so you don't have to pay for the whole 100 GB block at upfront to Amazon. Amazon will only charge for as per the use you and pay you go model, because the data you will copy you'll only have to pay for that amount. And you can also enable the automatic snapshots, which is taking a backup of your EBS volume. So EBS volumes are generally majorly used for keeping the root operating system as a C drive of your machine and EC2 instance. So that is where the EC2 comes into the picture. So it is a persistent block. So whenever you shut down your machine and whenever you restart, the data will be persistent, data will not be lost, and you will be able to use the data that you have kept earlier. So now in the second point, you can read like each Amazon EBS volume is automatically replicated within its availability zone. So by default, AWS provides a high availability of the resources, and by default, it replicates the volumes within the same availability zones, so that in case of any component failure, your data will be protected and you can easily recover the data. And this is how it is providing a high availability and high durability. So there is an option where you can enable the cross region as well. You can cross availability zone. You can also replicate your data using a snapshots and then copy your EBS volumes to the other S3 storage bucket. So there are multiple options which are available in case you want to have increase the data reliability. So each EBS volume is data persistent independently, which means the life cycle of a EC2 instance till that time the EBS volume will be available, and the root volume cannot be attached to the other machine. So you can keep the root volume safe on the EBS whenever you are using any of the virtual machine. And so there is an option when you delete the EC2 instance, by default the root volume will be deleted. But if you want, you can still keep a backup of that root volume as well at the time of termination. And yeah, so this is how you can use EBS volumes. So there is another type of instance type which is provided by Amazon, which is known as instance store. So instance store is something kind of a non-persistent storage. So it is only available till the time you're running a virtual machine. As soon as you shut down the virtual machine, the data will be lost. But that is not the case with the EBS volume. So whenever you want to use EBS volume, the data will be persistent until you terminate the EBS volume specifically, or until you terminate the EC2 machine specifically. The data will be persistent on Amazon. So snapshot is a way to take a backup of your EC2 volume at any particular point of a time. So that is how you can just go to a volume and you can take a snapshot. And again, there will be a separate charging for snapshots. So you have to pay extra money for keeping the snapshot volume, because that is also securing and acquiring the memory space on the disk. So you can create and attach multiple volumes to the same EC2 as a C drive, D drive, F drive as per your requirement, and you can detach them as well. So the main criteria for keeping the volumes attached is like they must be on the same availability zone, so that they will be available to the EC2 machine. So it is important to keep the volumes in the same availability zone where you have a virtual machine, so that they can be attached easily to the EC2 machines. Anything else,
Okay.
Deepali, you would like to add?
No, Rajat, it's good enough. Now I think we can get into the demo. So we can show that exactly how to attach EBS volumes with EC2. Um, okay, so here we are trying to cover that we will create one EC2 instance and we will attach EBS volumes to that EC2 instance and see it in action, that how it works. And if I go to this link, sorry, so this is the Medium blog link we have given here. So here we have detailed steps that how we need to perform this activity. Um, just bear with me a moment. I need to see exactly. Here it is, attach volume to Windows EC2 instance. So here we are attaching here we are attaching the volume to Windows instance. So let's go to the console and create one EC2 instance. But this volume can be attached to any, like whether it is Linux or Windows. So in any EC2 machine, you can attach further volumes. Okay, so I'm quickly covering these steps as we have discussed in detail in our last session. So this time, let's create one Windows machine. So this is the first one I can see with free tier eligible. And I'm going with this T2 micro. All default settings, not changing anything here. Now when we come to the storage section, now you will notice here that in case of Windows, we are getting this 30 GB default root volume. And in case of Linux, it was 8 GB. And we have option here to add new volume. So either we can add new volume when we are creating the instance, but normally we are not we are not sure that exactly how much volume we will need. So normally we need to add these volumes at some later stages when we really need that. So I'm skipping this option as of now here, and I can provide any tags, security group. I'm just going with the default one, and I can simply launch this machine, and I can create a new key pair. So I'm saying it Windows key, and I'm downloading it. So while this instance is getting created, let's wait. I think it will take 3-4 minutes to get created because Windows instances take little longer than Linux ones. So meanwhile, let's carry on with our slides and we will come back onto this demo in a while. So meanwhile, let's cover Elastic File System. So in case of EBS, what we are doing, we are attaching a separate volume. We are means we are adding additional drive. C drive is already there as a root volume, but we can attach any other drives here. But that drive will be can be used by only that particular EC2 machine. You cannot share that volume across different EC2 machines. But when we talk about any file system, so file system can be used as a shared file system, and you can use one file system with different EC2 machines. So normally the way we use shared drives and also they are file system. But in traditional file system, what happens there? We get a space limitation. Normally you must have faced these space issues on that file system. But now here, when we say it is EFS, it is elastic, means it will keep on growing as and when you keep on putting data onto that. And that single file system can be shared with multiple EC2 instances. So process is more or less same the way you do in your on-premise, that you have, let's say we create like two different EC2 instances here as we are seeing in this picture, that we have two different instances. Then we create one EFS and we create a mount point for that. And we link that mount point with each EC2 instance. So that is the typical process to mount any file system. That create a file system, create a mount point, and link your instances with that mount point. So this is how Amazon EFS works. Rajat, you want to add anything in EFS?
Yeah, so EFS is majorly used when you want to share the storage between multiple EC2 instances at a same time. Because if we talk about EBS, that EBS will be attached to a specific EC2 instance only. So it will be available only to one instance. Whereas if you want to want a kind of a space for a common storage, which can be shared with multiple instances, then EFS is the right way, which you can create and mount as a shared storage, and you can keep a common data for both the EC2s.
Yeah. So while we were talking about EFS, our Windows instance is ready. So let's connect to this instance. And one thing to notice here, that this instance has been created in US East 1B, because we are noticing this because when we try to add a new volume to this machine, we need to create the volume in the same AZ. Okay, Rajat, I have not done this activity from quite some time, so maybe help me here. So when we
Yeah, sure.
connect, like when we need to connect to Windows instances, we need some remote desktop client. So let me download it here. And when I, and sorry, just a second, let me connect that. So for Windows instances, the default user is administrator, and to get the password, I will need key pair with this. So I need to browse the key pair which I created while creating this instance. So it has decrypted the key here. So I need to get the password. This is my password for this administrator user. So I will use this password to log in into this instance with the help of remote desktop client. So this is preparing the Windows instance for us. Now if I try to see the Explorer, so here I can see it's coming up. So here we can notice that here we have one drive, which is C drive. And if you look at the properties, its size is 29.9 GB. So as when we were creating the instance, we got 30 GB as a root volume. So this is the root drive for this Windows machine. But now if I want to add more drives to this, what are the steps? So now we will get into that activity. So first of all, we need to create the volume. So if I go back to EC2, here I'm in Elastic Block Store section, volumes. Here we can see this is the root volume which was just created with our Windows instance, but we can create any additional volumes as well. So we will go ahead with this general purpose, but we have other types of volumes available that we can use throughput optimized volumes or like cold volumes. But for this demo, let's go ahead with general purpose. And this volume size is 100 GB. So let's go ahead with that for time being, but we can increase or decrease this size. And if you recall, our instance was created in 1B. So we need to create this volume in the same availability zone so we can link it with our Windows instance. We don't want to create any snapshot. So rest everything is default and simply hit create volume. So now this volume is being created. So once this is created, we will see a different status that available or something here. Meanwhile, let me just walk you through with the steps which we have written here. So what we are doing, that first of all, we created a Windows instance and then we create and attach new volume to the EC2 instance. So this is the step we are performing now. So we have created the volume. Here I have taken like in this instructions, I have taken 20 GB volumes. So you can go ahead with anything. And then once this volume is available, then we will attach this volume to our with our Windows instance. Okay. And to attach, we will need to get into the actions and then attach volume, and we need to choose the instance that with which instance we want to attach this. So now it is available. So in order to attach this, we need to select this one, go to the actions and say attach volume. Here, since I have only one instance running in my account at the moment, so I'm seeing only one. Otherwise, you will see list of all running instances in your account. So pick the instance where you want to attach this. You need to
So
provide
again to
any.
add here, yeah, again to add here that you need to keep a watch on the availability zone, because the availability zone must be same for the EC2 machine and the volume. Then only it can be attached. Otherwise, it's not allowed.
Yeah, because here you will see list of instances which are in the same AZ. If your instance is in a different AZ, you won't be seeing it here. So you won't be able to attach that volume with instance which is running in a different AZ. Okay, so once we have selected the instance, we can simply say attach volume. Now, if we notice the status here, it is in use. So now let's go back to our Windows instance and see if it is available. So I'm simply refreshing it. So here I'm still not able to see any additional drive in here. Though we have attached it, but we need to, in order to use this volume here into Windows instance, we need to perform few more steps. And what are those steps? Let's go back to instructions. So here we are saying that go to EC2 instance and check if this D folder or any other folder is available. But in order to make it visible there, we need to go to Server Manager, and then we need to click on File and Storage Devices. Basically, we need to really mount that volume in with, Windows as well. So let me show you how to do that. So here we are into the Server Manager. And what is the option I need to take? Let me refer to the steps. Sorry, I have not done this activity from quite some time. So once we are in Server Manager, we need to check in the file and storage devices, and then in disk, we need to see if this volume is available. Where I can find the file and storage devices, Rajat, do you recall?
Yeah, here's the file and storage in all servers.
All servers here. Okay. So in disk, here if we see, we can see this is the root volume, but where is that additional volume?
In the above section, you
Here
can
it
see
is.
offline. Yeah, 100
Yeah.
GB.
So this is offline, and now we need to turn this into online. Let me see if I can simply, yeah, bring online. I have simply done the right click and then bring online. Okay, do I need to do anything here, Rajat?
Yeah, so we need to mount disk with a new drive letter now. So disk is available. It was offline earlier. It was attached to EC2. So we made it online, and now we are going to create a partition of that storage so that it will be attached to the Windows for using. So just click on next.
Okay, all right. So volume size 100 is fine. We can attach it with any drive letter. We can create D drive or any other drive. Let's say we are creating F drive here.
So we can create multiple drives out of same volume as well, or we can even use a single volume to mount the whole drive.
So now we can see that both of these volumes are online. Now let's go back to our file explorer and see. So now we can notice one F volume here. And if I simply go to properties, So I can see this is 99.9, which is approx 100 GB volume we have created here. And now we can use this volume the way we normally use. So we can create any new file here, test file, let's say, and I can save any text in here. So this is how you can use this additional volume. Rajat, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah, so this is a persistent storage volume. As we discussed earlier, it is a EBS volume, and in case you want to attach it to a different EC2 machine, that is also possible. You just have to simply detach this volume from this machine and then attach it to the different EC2 instance. So the same data will be available on the different EC2 instance. So it is a persistent store. The data will be replicated by Amazon itself in the same availability zones. And if required, you can also create a snapshots to create a backup of your data at any point of time.
Right. Unlike EFS, you cannot share this volume simultaneously with other EC2 instances, but you can definitely detach and attach it with a different EC2 instance.
So
Okay,
you
so
cannot detach
here,
and attach the root volume because that is comprising of our operating system. So there are different ways, like you can detach and create a new EC2 machine with that volume, but you cannot attach a root volume to another EC2 instance.
right. So here, these are the detailed steps which you can practice. And as you know, like I was struggling to perform these steps as I was doing it after a quite long time since I normally don't work with Windows instances. So please spare some time to go through and just practice this activity so you are clear that exactly how to attach additional volumes with your EC2 machines. Now let's move on. So now another key service which we have in AWS, which is S3, Simple Storage Service. So this is a object storage. And what do we mean by object storage? That you can dump in any kind of data, whether it is like structured or semi-structured or unstructured data. You can dump any kind of data in your object storage. When we talk about object storage, it means we cannot really install any. We cannot install any softwares onto this. Though you can dump your software binaries into this, but you cannot actually install that. For installing those softwares, you will need EBS. So S3 is a object storage, and we can store any kind of file in S3. And the key thing with S3 is that Amazon guarantees that you will be having like 11 nines of durability and 4 nines of availability. When we say 11 nines, so 99.99. So this percent of durability and 99.99% of availability, Amazon claims that we can get this level of durability and availability with S3. And how they are maintaining this level of durability, because whenever we are saving any file to S3, behind the scene AWS is replicating that file to multiple availability zones. So that's how they are ensuring that this file is available whenever we need it. As it is mentioned here, that S3 objects are automatically stored across multiple devices spanning a minimum of 3 availability zones. Okay. And how we store files in S3? Like in Windows, we create folders. In S3, we create buckets. And then these there is a limit, though there is not a limit that this much size you can store in S3, means it will keep on expanding as and when you keep on putting the data, but there is a limitation on each object size. So every file cannot go beyond 5 terabytes. So if you have five larger than 5 terabytes, you may need to split them. And it is a universal namespace. So that we will see means your S3 bucket name should be really unique. And
So the benefit of object storage is like you can store a huge amount of data on object storage, and all the objects which are stored on the disk are protected by atomic uh, properties, which means like the whole object will be preserved and it will be encrypted by default. So there's no chances of getting the data corruption or getting the data lost during the transfer. So it ensures like all the objects that you persist, they are whether fully persisted or they are not persisted. So they're atomic in properties, so that it provides a high durability of the data, and also it provides an encryption of the data when it is storing on the S3 buckets. And you can also specify a different algorithm for the encryption during the settings in S3 bucket. So that is where it is high performant and high durable data than EBS volumes even.
yeah, and we will see these options when we actually go on to the S3 console. And another few points here that whenever we upload any files and we need to see the programmatical status of that file, whether it has whether this file is completely copied onto that. So we get this HTTP 200 return code. So we can check this code as a status in our SDKs. And then once the data is stored in S3, though like S3 is already very cost effective storage, but still you can further means make it more cost optimized when you store data into different storage classes available in S3. So in S3, like we can have by default it is saving your data across three availability zone. But if we change the storage class, like if we in standard it is saved in 3 AZs, but when we go to infrequent access or in Glacier, we can further reduce this cost because it will be saved in just two availability zone or in such scenarios. In Glacier, it will be saved in three different AZs, but still it will be saved in the zip format or some different mechanisms are applied. So it is taking less space and it is more cost effective for user. And S3 also guarantees high availability by replicating data across many servers and AZs. This we have already talked about. And then we have another feature here that read after write consistency for ports of new objects. What this means is that whenever we are saving any new file in S3, it means it is immediately available. Though we know behind the scene what is happening when we are creating any new object, it is being copied to three different locations. So you might see some delay, but whenever we are creating any new file, you will not be having that delay. It will be immediately available. But in case of any updates or deletes, you might see that some microseconds lag. That let's say you updated file at your bucket, but you are accessing it from some location where you could not see that your updates are immediately available. There can be some microseconds delay because behind the scene it is replicating your changes across the three different location. So these two things to understand here, that read after write consistency for ports mean for new file it is immediately available, but eventual consistency for overwrite means when you are updating your data, then it is a eventual consistency. There is some slight lag. Okay, so now let's go to S3 and see how things actually happens. So here I am in AWS console, going to S3. And guys, if you have any question, please use the comment section and we will talk about all those questions towards the end of the session. So this is the S3 console, S3 dashboard looks like. Here we can simply create bucket, and this bucket name should be unique. For example, if I am saying test, so there must be test buckets available. So it will not allow me to create a bucket with name test. As of now, I'm just keeping it test and I'm creating this bucket in US East 1 region. And I have this setting here that I can simply tick this box and say I'm blocking all public access onto this bucket. So this is the service level security. So in AWS, you can imply security on different levels. So each service has like different option where you can impose more security. And then there is an option to enable or disable bucket versioning. What this means, if you want to maintain different versions of your files, then you can enable versioning. Otherwise, it will simply overwrite. And we can provide tags the way we were using tags for our EC2 instances. And this is the thing which Rajat was talking about, that we can enable encryption. If we want to, if we are like storing sensitive data in our S3 bucket and we want to encrypt that data, then we can enable this encryption here. But yes, definitely, whenever we are enabling these features, then there is a cost associated with this. Then there are some advanced settings as well, but let's go with the standard default setting time being. So it has given me error that this bucket name already exists. So I need to choose some different name. So let me say meetup demo. What is the date today? 26th Feb. So I hope this is a unique name. So this is how I have created. So it has given me a message that successfully created this bucket meetup demo. Let me see in my list of bucket. So here it is. So as of now, if you notice, the access level status is that this bucket and all the objects inside this buckets are not public. Okay. So it means this is a private bucket for my account. Now, if I want to store some files to this bucket, I can simply upload these files from here, or I can like drag and drop files into this area. So let's say I have few files in my local machine. I'm just copying these files to my bucket. And then I'll simply say upload. So now it has said upload succeeded, and we can see we have these three files available in our bucket. Now, so this is how you can simply store data. You can means nowadays S3 is a good storage when you want to back up your phone's data. So you can also use S3 for that purpose. But with every bucket, there are different options available because we can do lot many things with S3. So one key feature of S3 that we can host static websites on S3 bucket. So as you see here, the files I have copied, these are like index.html. So this is some web page. So I want to host this web page onto this bucket. This is a static web page. Let me simply show you that how this web page looks like. So this is some simple web page, some static web page which I have kept in my bucket. Now, when I want to host this web page as a website, I can definitely leverage S3 because it is a static one. In order to do that, we need to do few more configurations here. When we go to properties, we can see like different options here. Bucket versioning, we talked about tags, encryption, and this is the key thing. Let's discuss it here, that we can enable intelligent tiering on this bucket. When we say intelligent tiering, means we can classify uh, that, let's say we are getting all the data files into this bucket. So data files, yes, I need those files active for few days, let's say 7 days. But after 7 days, I know that these files will not be frequently accessed. So I can move that into a storage where cost is further reduced. So, because we know that this is not a hot data, this is going to be like warm data for next few days, and let's say after a month, it will be a cold data. It will be hardly used, but still, I need to save this data for some purpose because we may use it this data in future. So we can classify those options here. So if I simply go to create configuration, and I can assign any configuration name ABC here. And so here we can get into those details that, okay, if my files, either I can classify this thing for all the files in my bucket, or I can classify some specific files, let's say files which are with the prefix log. So I'm just transferring all the log files into the reduced storage. So we can classify these things here. So we can provide these rules so we can further reduce the cost for saving our objects in S3 bucket.
So if we use a archival storage, the cost will reduce by a huge margin, something like we'll save 80% on the cost, especially if we move the data into the archival storage. So that is where you can utilize this as a cost effective measure. But also remember, like if you put a data into a archival storage, there will be a lot of time consumed for the retrieval of the data as well. So that is why don't put any critical data. Data something like which is older than 6 months or 1 year is a good data which is eligible to be put onto a archival storage. But again, depending upon the business needs, there may be a data which just after 3 months you want to put it into archival in case you have a huge data. So you can save a lot of cost if you use the archival storage space.
Yeah, and archival storage is named as Glacier in AWS. So whenever we are storing any data in Glacier, it means there is a retrieval time attached to it. In S3, you can retrieve your files right away, but when you're trying to retrieve it from Glacier, uh, there is like some SLA that you will, there are different classes that you can get those files in few minutes or you can get those files in few hours. And typical time is like average time is 3 to 5 hours. Okay, and so there are, I'm into the properties section. So there are things like various options which we can further configure on our S3 objects, that we can enable server access, we can enable Cloud Trail, which is like audit logs. We can enable audit logs on this S3 bucket. We can create any event notification. Let's say we want that whenever any file comes into the S3 bucket, an event should trigger. So my workflow is started. So we can like create those kind of events here for serverless automated use cases. And then transfer acceleration is something we can enable. Transfer acceleration when we are storing huge file. And so what it does, that behind the scene, it split that big file into smaller chunks and store those files, store those different chunks in parallel. So it will speed up the time for your transfer. We can enable logs here. We can also enable this option, requester page. Let's say you are some like streaming website and you have huge videos stored in your S3 bucket. But when you, what you want, that whenever any user downloading that those videos, you should not be charged, while that charge should go to your users. So you can enable this option that if you're enabling this requester pays means you will not be bearing that cost, while a subscriber to your bucket will be bearing that cost. And the last property here is static website hosting, which we are going to use now, that we can use this bucket to host any static web pages. So let's enable this one. So what it asks, that we need to host a static website, and in order to host that we need to define a landing page. So in our case it was index.html, but it can be anything, abc.html. We can also define error document here, which is optional, so I'm just ignoring time being. So what I have done so far, I just created a bucket. I stored some index.html file into my bucket, and then I enabled this bucket for static website hosting. Okay, so when we do this static website hosting, it gives us a URL. So if I try to access this URL, ideally I should have seen this page here, but now I got this error that 403 forbidden, access denied. So if you recall, when we created this bucket, it was created as a private bucket. But now, if since this is a private bucket, obviously I cannot use it from open network. So if I want to use this bucket for a web page, then I need to make it public. Only then it is accessible from browser. So how to make this bucket public? So we need to, you must be aware that whenever we deal with any permission or something, so IAM, Identity and Access Management, is the service which helps us doing that. So we need to leverage IAM, or we need to explicitly define some policies onto that specific service. So in this case, we need to define a policy, an IAM policy onto this bucket, where we will say that okay, now we are allowing this bucket to available from public access, for public access. So I'm just going back to this blog here, and here we will see one option, static website public bucket policy. So this is the policy. What we are saying here, that what is the SID? This is add permission. What we are doing, we are allowing to whom, principals mean whom you are allowing, to everyone, asterisk is here, and we are, what we are allowing, s3 get object means read access on s3, and on which bucket we will define our bucket name here. So let me simply copy this policy and add this policy to my bucket. So if I go to permissions, and in the bucket policy, I can simply replace this policy, and so I'm allowing everyone read access onto this bucket. And what is the bucket? This one. Okay. And followed by slash star means on all the files I am giving this public read access. So the moment I do this, I don't have permission to edit bucket policy. Okay. So I think first of all, I need to disable this, because here I am saying that block all public access. So first of all, I need to disable this, and it explicitly asking to ensure that we are not doing this by mistake. So first of all, we have allowed that public access here, so that it will say objects can be public. Let me just show you here. So here, like earlier, it was like the tag was that buckets and objects not public, but now it is saying objects can be public. But in order to host it as a static web page, we want bucket itself to be public. For that, we need to add that bucket policy. So going again to this bucket policy area and adding our, we need to add this policy here and update the bucket name. So this time it allowed us to change the policy, and it has also given us this warning that this bucket is now publicly accessible. So this is the time. Now if I try to access the same URL which I got from the static web page hosting, this time I can access this. So this is how your S3 bucket can be used to host any static web pages. I hope this is clear, but I will definitely recommend try this out. And so you can use this feature to for any invitation. Let's say if you have some party in your family, some birthday party, some anniversary, so you can create your fancy web page and invite your friends and families. So that is another use case that you can use this bucket for your personal usage. Rajat, you want to add anything? So
Yeah, Deepali, I'll say very well articulated demo, very easy to explain, and I hope people must have got it. So, yeah, so S3 is majorly now being used in public for publishing the bills for your mobile phones and publishing the PDF files. So keep a watch. Even the OTT platform is using this majorly nowadays. S3 buckets are very popular storage areas, and all the websites, majorly static websites, single page applications, are always hosted on S3 buckets in the cloud architecture. So this is a very good way to host without any extra maintenance, and very easy to configure service, and it's even very high, I will say, high scalable and high performance service as well. So you can add on top of some services like CloudFront and Route 53 to make it more efficient for rendering your UI data if you have a huge UI. But this is a very good service which is being in use nowadays.
yeah, so after S3 we have Glacier, though we have already talked about Glacier. But yes, let's quickly revisit the key properties. So as we understand that it is extremely low cost, secure and durable storage for archiving and long-term backups. And it is again designed to deliver 11 nines of durability. And to archive objects, we need to define archival rules, as we were saying, that we can enable intelligent tiering onto that. That after 30 days, I want to put these logs into infrequent access area, and after 90 days, I want to put them into the deep storage glacier area. So we can configure those kind of rules on our bucket. And let me quickly show you exactly where you can do that.
So the
So
main difference between Glacier and S3 is like you'll store the same amount of data, but there is a huge cost benefits in terms if you use a Glacier. And the difference is like on S3 there is no limit of read and write operation, but on Glacier there is a limit of read and write operations, and also the operations will be much slower on Glacier than on S3 buckets because it is a archival storage.
yeah, so on your bucket, when you are into the management section, you can configure lifecycle rules here. So you can provide any name, and then the way we were discussing that we can configure it for all the files, or we can configure for any specific kind of files, and we can separate them out using a prefix. So here, like you can configure that exactly when you want to choose. You want to move it into the standard storage number of days. You can configure that. Okay, after 30 days, please move it to standard IA. And similarly, you can add that after 90 days. So these are the different options. After 90 days, let's say we are saying that move it to Glacier. So these kind of rules you can configure on your bucket to make it more cost effective. Okay, going back to the slides, and then we can set rules on the bucket, and we can also use these things via APIs and SDKs. What are the benefits here? That retrieval from Glacier is quick, because when we talk about like typical backup, so when we go for like tape backup and also, there is a huge retrieval time. It take like days, weeks, or months to get backup from those tape devices. But if you're putting your backup in Glacier, you can get it like, there are three different classes. If you are configuring it for expedited, then you can get that data in 1 to 5 minutes. If you are configuring it for standard retrieval, then you can get that data within 3 to 5 hours. And if you are configuring it for bulk retrieval, then you can get that data in maximum 12 hours. So 12 hours is the maximum retrieval time when you are storing, when you are archiving your data into Glacier. And definitely, like, there is no other provider who is giving you this level of durability and scalability. So this is an extremely low cost archival solution. So after that, let's go for a quick recap that what all, I'm sorry. So let's quickly revisit what all we covered. That we started with the three pillars of cloud computing, where we talked about the compute, storage, and network. And then we discussed on different type of storage service, where we talked about EBS, EFS, S3, Glacier, and we also talked about like storage gateway and Snowball. Then EBS, it is easy to use, scalable, high performant block storage, and it is designed for EC2. While EFS is automatically grows and shrinks whenever we add or remove files. So auto scaling is there. We need not to explicitly provision that how much additional, how much EFS we need. So we can simply configure EFS. We need not to worry about the size. And then we talked about S3, which is an object storage, and it provides like 11 lines of durability and 4 lines of availability with fantastic security and performance offerings. And then we discussed about Glacier, which we can use for archiving solutions. So now I think we are done whatever we wanted to cover. So now it's your turn to practice the demos, whatever we covered, like to how to add EBS volumes and how to host a static web page in using your S3 bucket. So please practice that, and let us know if you get any doubts or questions. Otherwise, we will love to see that exactly what creative web pages you have created. So please share the link on the LinkedIn. This is our URLs. So Dipali K and then Rajat Arora. So you can like tag us on LinkedIn so we can see that how, what are the innovative use cases you are really trying with these learnings. Rajat, you want to add anything? Any final words?
Yeah, thanks for joining the session. I hope it gives a value add uh, to your knowledge. So let us know and keep trying the things, and we'll come back with more sessions on this series. And thank you so much for Dipali for sharing so much knowledge here.
Thanks, Rajat. So, guys, yes, we will definitely want to know the feedback because these are really elementary level sessions we are covering. So, if you are finding it useful, let us know. If you are not finding it useful and you already know these things, please let us know. So, accordingly, we can plan our future sessions. So, please leave your feedback onto the channel, whether you are like watching it online or offline. So we would be interested to see your feedbacks so we can plan future sessions accordingly. So as of now, I don't see any questions. So I think we are good to wind up here. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time and patience. Thanks, Rajat.
Thanks everyone.